Alright, welcome back again. I hope you like the little intro. Me and my editor got together and figured that one out. I'm trying to decide where I want to put it. If I put it right there in the very beginning when the episode starts, or if I put it... The other place I'm thinking about it is right as I say, grab your popcorn, because we're talking about whatever. I'll say, grab your popcorn, and then the little intro, my little popcorn intro, and then say what we're watching. So those are the two places I'm thinking about putting them, but I'm unsure of the better one. It's a test. You know what? It's a test. We're figuring it out as we go. I am not the plan ahead and do things kind of guy. I'm the just do it. I lose interest if I try to plan too much. So usually I just jump in and I learn as I go. And that's what this is. This is a learning as you go thing. And, that's what I'm trying to do, is learn as I go and make it better. And if each episode's better than the last one, then hey, you know what? I did better, I guess. Anyway, the movie I'm talking about is Possum. Fuck, I've already fucked that up. I was supposed to do my little intro. Okay, hold on. Grab the popcorn, because today we're talking about Possum. See? I did that. I did it right that time. we're talking about Possum from 2018. It's weird. It's definitely one of those movies that... How do I say this? Like, it feeds you information, but it doesn't hand feed you information. And everything it tells you is not necessarily what it's telling you at face value, if that makes sense. So everything you see is important, but it doesn't necessarily mean what it looks like it means at the beginning, kind of thing. And then at the end, it kind of all comes together, and you kind of go, oh, I get it now. Especially the ending, it's kind of ambiguous, and it's kind of like, is it this, is it this? And I like movies like that. I like movies where you watch it, and then at the end, you kind of have to think to yourself, like, what did I just see, and, like, what did it mean? Movies don't have to be deep like this, but I kind of like it when it's more thought-provoking than just, the ending of the movie. And so I'm into stuff like this, and if you're not, you probably won't like this one. It's kind of a slow burn. It's kind of weird, but it's definitely good. It's more of like a creepy movie. It is still horror, I would say, but it's definitely creepier than it is scary. After I finished the movie the first time, because I watched it twice, once to watch it for myself and then once for you to take notes on it. After I watched it the first time, I actually went online and I went to try to see what other people thought the ending meant, just so I could kind of get a big, broader understanding of it. And even watching it this second time, when I went through it this time, I was like noticing things this time that I was like, oh, that fucking makes sense now. You know what I mean? Like, I noticed little things. It was like, oh, there's something that I'm not going to mention until the very end because I don't want to spoil part of it. But towards the very end, I realized something, and I was like, oh, that makes sense why this thing happens, right? And I like things like that. But again, if you're not into slow burns, this one's probably not for you. But anyway, we're talking about Possum from 2018. I realized in the last two I didn't do this, but I should probably tell y'all where I watch it in case y'all want to watch it. I watched this one on Tubi. It's directed by Matthew Holness, who's an English comedian and actor, and I don't know any of his other work. I haven't seen anything he's been in, but he was in the UK Office, or The Office UK. He's directed a couple other movies too, but I haven't watched any of those either. I'm probably going to give him a chance. I think he's done like one other like weird horror-esque movie, so I might give that one a try because I was really a really big fan of this one. All right, so I'm just gonna hop right on in. Let's go, because I have so much notes written down for this that my notes app, I reached the limit on the amount of words I was supposed to do, so I had to make a second file just for the rest of the movie because there's a lot of stuff. All right, anyway, so it starts with a guy standing in a field looking at the camera. He's just like in this place. There's something in the field, and he's just standing, and he's looking dead at us. And there's a voiceover that's reading a poem, and it reads the poem throughout the whole movie. It'll feed us little snippets here and there until at the very end we get the whole thing. And the part we hear, it goes, "Mother, father, what's afoot? Only possum, black as soot. Mother, father, where to tread? Far from possum and his head." And that's the end of the poem. We get snap to nighttime, and we're looking at this leather bag in the center of a small cluster of trees. The trees kind of are all growing from a singular point and then growing out. Kind of like how you think like a sunflower would be, right? Like you have the center, like the brown part, and then all the petals come off of that. So think of the brown part as the ground, So there's like a little space in the ground, and then all these trees are growing out from that and kind of away from it, sort of. So there's a leather bag in the center of the small cluster of trees, and the poem continues. Here's a bag. Now what's inside? Does he seek or does he hide? And the camera flips to the same guy now, the same guy that was in the field. So the camera pans to him, and he's kneeling down, and it looks like he's unzipping the bag. And the poem continues. Can you spy him deep within, little possum black as sin? The guy opens the bag and he stands up and he's keeping his eyes locked on it, right? You can start to see something come out, but as soon as you start to see something come out, the credits start. So you can't tell what was it or whatever, right? The music in the credits is so fucking eerie. It's so weird. I can't even like describe it, but it's so creepy. It's just pictures of buildings and like places that don't have people in them. It's just things, right? Like I don't really know how to explain it. It's just random pictures with this super unsettling music. It's really, really creepy. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that is just like creepy, and you just like look at it and you're just like, ugh, like I don't like the way that looks, you know what I'm saying? Like it just gives you kind of the heebies, and this is definitely part of it. So now the credits are over, and we start with our main character, whose name is Philip. We'll find out in a little bit, but I'll just tell you now. His name is Philip. He's in a room. The only thing, it's a super, super small room. The only other thing that's in this room is like this super small bed. On the bed is the bag that we saw in the intro. It's like a brown leather bag with like two handles on it. The best way I can think of it is like a little duffel bag. It's like a brown leather duffel bag, right? And he's got the bag on the bed. Also, Philip, let me describe him. He's probably in his early to mid 40s. Tall, white guy. Again, this all takes place in England. So, tall, white guy, super heavy English accent, kind of short cut hair. He has this frown on his face that is just perpetual. He has the frown through the entire movie. No matter what happens, he always has this frown. It looks like he's about to cry, like at all times. It looks like he's at his job at a supermarket, and he just got told that his dog got hit by a car and passed away, but his boss won't let him leave until he finishes his shift, so he's trying to finish checking people out at the cash register without losing it. That's what it looks like. Like, he's got the pain in his face, but he just can't speak it, and so it's just plastered on his face, if that makes any sense. We later see, along with the way that his face is weird, we also see that he moves really weird too. This is what I was saying. I don't want to say what I think it is because I don't want to spoil anything. But the best way I can describe it is he walks. When a normal person walks, they walk with their arms to their side and their arms sway as they walk, right? Imagine, stand up right now. Okay, stand up. Are you standing? Okay, good. Now imagine you've just been handcuffed and your hands are handcuffed in front of you instead of behind you. So you see how your hands are in front of you and kind of drawn to your center, sort of? That is how Philip stands this whole movie. That's how he walks. That's how he runs. That's how everything he does. His arms do not sway. They stand in front of him, almost stationary, except for just a couple of instances. And it's so weird. It feels so unnatural. Like, he just doesn't move fluid. He's just like rigid and stiff. Actually, it was funny. While I was writing this part, because I watched the movie and I pause every couple of minutes so I can write down stuff. As I was writing this part, it clicked in my head why he probably does that. But again, I don't want to say anything until the end. All right, now we're on a train. Philip's sitting in the back, he's got the brown bag on the little table, and a couple rows in front of him are these 4 school kids. They're in like school uniforms. They're all sitting together and they're talking about something that's happened. You can't really tell what they're talking about, but they say something about whatever happened at the army barracks and a place they called the Far Marsh Woods. So one of the kids is like, "Oh, my uncle told me about it. My uncle's whatever, right?" But like, you don't know what they're talking about. There's whatever they're talking about. It happened at the army barracks and the marsh, right? And one of the kids is like not paying attention to the other one. He's like doodling in his little book or whatever. And the kid looks up and he notices that Philip is staring him down. The train ends up stopping. The kids are getting up. As they get up, Philip gets up too to also get off. And the other boy's leaving. The last boy's packing his bag, and Philip walks up to the other boy and goes, Oh man, I'm gonna try to do an impression of Philip. It's not gonna work out very well. He's got like a super thick accent, and he doesn't speak with like hardly any emotion. He just comes up to the kid and he goes, "What were you drawing?" That was terrible. That was not good at all. Hold on. Let me try it one more time. What were you drawing? I don't think that was any better. Anyway, so he asked the kid what he was drawing, right? And the kid, rightfully being approached by a stranger and talked to by a stranger, gets the fuck off the train. We cut to Philip standing in front of a house. It looks kind of overgrown, like there's dead weeds in the yard. There's vines growing up the windows. It looks like it could be abandoned. He stares for a moment before opening the gate and walking inside. When he comes inside, he comes to this little. The best way I can describe it is like a foyer. It's way too small to be a living room, and there's nothing inside it except for like a lamp and like a little place to hang your keys or your bag or whatever. I'm gonna note something right now because I got confused the first time I watched this. So in the room there are four doors. Okay, there's the front door that Philip walked in, and then directly on the right wall is door number one. Directly on the wall in front of you, so opposite side of the front door, is door number two, and that door's open a little bit. And then on the opposite wall of door one is a little hallway, and at the end of that little hallway is a third door. And that little hallway is on the same wall as a set of stairs that are going up. When he first walked in, my first thought was that the house looked like Wallace and Gromit. But I'm positive that's probably just like a coincidence. Like how if you saw a house from the early 70s, it would remind you of like the Brady Bunch. It's probably the same deal. Anyway, the house looks clean, but it's unkept. Like, not unkept, it's kept. Like, there's no trash. Everything's where it's supposed to be, right? Like, the house isn't trashy, it's just dirty, if that makes sense. Like, the wallpaper is all stained and old, and, the carpet is discolored and stuff like that. So, everything is old, but it's not trashed. He walks to the center of the little foyer, and he places a bag down. And he looks at door one, which is closed. He looks at door two, which I said was slightly ajar earlier. And then he starts to walk upstairs, which is where, just like he walks upstairs, the stairs, right, like I said, right next to it is the little hallway to room three. Philip is on the top of the stairs, and he's walking down the hall towards a room. It keeps cutting between him walking, and you see a shot of orange and white balloons against a white wall with a wallpaper that has like a little kid playing with orange balloons. And as it's focusing on these white and orange balloons, there's like a black smoke coming from the bottom. Like if you've ever seen something on fire, like how the smoke is black. There's like a black smoke rising from underneath where the balloons are, right? So it cuts Philip balloons, Philip balloons, Philip balloons. After the last shot of the balloons, it cuts back to Philip, and he's sitting on a bed reading a little book. And the book it's his book from when he was a kid. It's kind of like a sketchbook, I guess. Like everything's blank, and he's drawn on it, right? On the first page that he has open, we can see part of the poem that was read to us in the beginning. And there's also a drawing of what looks like a kid running from a burning house. After he looks at that page, he closes it and he hides it. It was hidden underneath the floorboard, so that's where he puts it back. It's underneath the floorboards. Philip goes back downstairs, and his bag is gone. So he kind of looks up, and he looks up to where door number two is, the one that's kind of open a little bit. And he can see that it's on a table that's sitting in there. He calls out the name Morris, and nobody answers. So he goes into the room where his bag is, and there's no one in there. He's all alone. He then goes to the backyard. He's got the bag in hand, right? His little brown bag. In the backyard, it's full of old, like what you would find in a backyard to an old house, right? There looks to be some sort of building back there, like maybe a little greenhouse or maybe a little shed that had burned down. And then there's a barrel. It looks like a fire barrel if you've ever, fucking lit a fire in a barrel. So Philip goes up to the barrel. He opens up his bag, starts to take whatever it is out. And we can't see what's in there yet. But as he's taking it out, you can see him struggling with these huge. The only way you can describe them really is spider legs. They look like spider legs. He picks it up and he puts it in the barrel. And when he bends down to pick up the empty bag, he sees a fox. And so Philip sees the fox sees him. It goes back and forth. They kind of stare down at each other for a second before he drops his bag at the back door and goes back inside. Now we see that wallpaper again, the white wallpaper with the orange balloons and the little kid. But instead of being fresh and clean like it was, it's now dirty. So it's got like the yellow dirt that, white fades to yellow when it gets old. So it's got that yellow hue on it, and it looks really gross. And we start to hear more of the poem. And the poem goes, bag is open, growing wider. What's inside? Man or spider? Little boy, don't lose your way. Possum wants to come and play. Philip is asleep. He wakes up because there's like a bug crawling on his face, right? He's in this room. He like wakes up. You can see he's in this room that has dirty walls. And I just realized while I was doing this, you can see when he wakes up that the walls are dirty and there's wallpaper and the wallpaper's torn and everything. You can see the wallpaper, the balloon one from earlier. So this is the same room that we had the shot of the balloons and the smoke in. This is just the room now old, I guess, or whatever. But it's the same room. It has the same wallpaper. So he was seeing the same room, just it's the same room as the one that was in the vision that we were seeing with the balloons. Anyway, he sits up and something's next to him in bed, and he freaks out and pushes it off. We then move to him washing his face. He's like washing his face and there's a mirror, right? And when his head is down and he's washing, there's something reflected in the mirror, and it's hard to really tell what it is because it's blurry, but it looks like an amalgamation of spider legs. Like it just looks like a bunch of dangly spider legs. So Philip leaves his room holding the bag again, and again it looks full. It looks like there's something inside it. He goes downstairs and is about to leave, but he steps over to door number 1, and he's looking at it like he's trying to work up the courage to open it, right? We hear this old gravelly voice say, going in? I'm not going to do accents for this. I keep trying, but it doesn't work out. So here's a gravelly old voice saying, going in. Philip turns towards the second doorway, and he sees an old man standing in the doorway. It turns out this door is the door to a kitchen. So it's like a really small kitchen, and there's a table in the center to eat at. Philip looks at the old man, says no, and then walks into the kitchen and immediately starts making something to drink. The man looks at the bag and asks, mind of its own? The old man sits down. He lights up a joint, and he asks what it is. And Philip says it's a puppet. And this man asks if he's going to destroy it. The man says he's heard of Philip's performance. He got a letter from a friend, and apparently the performance was a really big scandal. He doesn't really go into what happened, but something with the puppet and children. You hear this old man say, like, you showed that to kids, And Philip just replies with, they'll take me back once this is gone, referring to the puppet. Philip spits out his drink on the floor, and the man, whose name is Morris, I'm just going to put that out there already, says, now you won't get something from the jar. I said I wasn't going to do that. He says, now you won't get something from the jar. And we can see in the cabinet is this big jar with some sort of green balls in it. I'm assuming it's supposed to be candy, but it's never told to us directly what it's supposed to be. He then asks for a demonstration because he wants to see how the legs work before Philip kills it. And Philip snaps at him. He says, you can't kill it. It's a puppet. He gets up to leave Morris. It's written, the way it's spelled like Maurice. So every time I read it, my brain says Maurice, but I gotta remember that they call him Morris in the movie. So he gets up to leave, and Morris called out to him, remember, a demonstration. Anyway, so Philip's sitting on a swing set now, and he sees this couple walking in the distance. They're like pushing a little baby carriage. And the couple notices him, and he gets kind of nervous, and he stands up and starts walking towards something on the ground. And you can't tell what it is because they kind of put it in the foreground to a way where it's blurry. But it looks awfully like a spider. Now we got to Philip walking in the woods, and he gets to an area, and we kind of see him turn and pause and look at something. And it looks like he's seeing that cluster of trees from the opening scene. And as he's walking through the woods, we hear more of the poem. And the poem goes, look at Possum, here he lies. Children meet his lifeless eyes. See his nasty legs and tongue. When he wakes, watch him run. It cuts to the book Philip was reading earlier, and this page has what looks like a giant spider on it. Maybe on like a beach or some kind of sandy body of water-esque area, right? Someone calls his name and he looks up and no one's there, and he gets freaked out, as you would. Runs over to what looks like a huge spider on the ground. Now we're back at the house. This is what I mean when I said the movie's kind of weird. There's a lot of I'm here, and then 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 I'm here. And, like, it's important, but there's no transition scenes. So it sounds a lot like I'm missing points, and I'm not. It sounds a lot like I'm saying, oh, he's here, and this part's not important, and then he's here. There is not this part is not important. He's literally in one place, and then he goes to the next, and it's just like a boom, he's there. Like one shot to the next shot, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're back at the house. Philip goes down the stairs to see Maurice. I did it again. To see Maurice eating at the table. They meet eyes, and Maurice tells him to come in. Philip asks to borrow the tools. Maurice gets up to get him the tools, and asks if he's hungry. And Philip says no, or he says, pity, we're having fox. He gives him the tools, and he asks if he's going to take the puppet apart, to which Philip says yes. And he says it's a pity, because the only thing you were ever good at was puppeting. This is also where we learned that this house is Philip's. There's like I don't remember exactly what's said between the two, but there's just like a little comment about Philip owning the house. So Maurice pulls out a puppet and asks if Philip remembers it. And Philip looks horrified to see it. Like, he looks actually scared when Maurice pulls out this puppet. And the puppet looks pretty creepy. I can't even really describe it. It looks kind of like a devil to me. Like, it doesn't have horns, but, like, the face is kind of elongated and angular. And it's hard to tell if the puppet is red, like the skin on the puppet is red, and it's just because everything in the house is dirty and covered in, like, grime, it looks brown, or if it's just brown to begin with. But it doesn't look good, right? It looks pretty creepy. So Philip looks scared to see the puppet, right? And Maurice tells him the puppet's well made and it runs in the family. To which Philip says, "You're not my father." So Maurice gets upset and he just shuts the door in his face and says, "Brings back my tools," right? Now we're back in the room that Philip is staying in. The bag is on the floor and there's a TV playing static. The static clears for a second and we can hear a news report saying the police are investigating the disappearance of a 14-year-old boy. He supposedly disappeared in Fall Marsh Woods. The boy was last seen coming home from school in the area, and we can see shots of these woods in the little TV, and it's the same woods that Philip was in earlier. Philip's outside, now walking somewhere, and he passes two guys. These two guys look at him and goes, "Oi, aren't you the pervert?" I keep saying I'm not going to do that, and I keep doing that. Anyway, they call Philip a pervert, and he doesn't say anything, and he just keeps going. But now Philip is very much acting like a pervert because he's just standing in front of a school just watching. Like, just standing at the entrance to a school, just kind of staring in. A school staff member comes out and asks him what he's doing, and Philip just goes, "Oh, this used to be my school." The guy pretty much politely tells him to fuck off. Back into the woods, we see the cluster of trees again. Philip decides this time to actually go to the cluster, so he climbs down. There's like a little steep hill to get to the cluster of trees, and he gets to it. And the trees look almost spider-like, like because the legs are coming out in a way that spider legs come out of a spider abdomen, right? If that makes sense. Like the trees are the legs, and it's just missing the head, right? And he drops the bag in the center, and the scene from the opening plays again. So now it kind of makes a spider, because you drop the bag in, and that makes like the spider abdomen, and then all the trees coming out kind of makes spider-esque legs, right? So he drops the bag in the center, and the scene from the beginning starts to play again when he opens it. But he hears someone call his name again, and he gets scared and runs off. Now we're at this body of water. Like I said, there's going to be a bunch of seemingly random scenes back to back where they just kind of jump, da-da-da-da-da. If you get confused, it's okay. I didn't fuck up. This movie's just weird. Anyway, he's on this bridge. This is the weirdest bridge I've ever seen. The bridge looks like the letter V. Like where you put your feet is super, super narrow, and it gets wider up at the handrails. Anyway, Philip's holding the bag above his head, and he tosses it into the water. And I don't know what it is, but something about this scene is weird. When I watched it the first time, it felt weird. Like it felt, God, how do I describe it? Like one of those impossible drawings, right? Like God, I can't even explain it because I don't know what those are called. But just like the proportions and the dimensions of everything and where he's supposed to be standing, it all feels really weird. So it feels like when I look at it, like I'm just looking at something wrong, if that makes sense. Anyway, he's holding the bag above his head and he tosses it into the water, right? And he starts to walk away, and boom, he just collapses right into the mud. He starts crying and hyperventilating, and we see the same couple of scenes from earlier, but now it's from a different view. Like when he put the spider thing into the barrel, now we're seeing it from his eyes, so we can see what it looked like inside the barrel when he put the spider thing in the barrel. And the barrel was full of water, it was full of leaves, and you could see all these spider legs in this water. And when he wakes up to find something on his bed, we can now see that the something was a pale face that was staring back at him, right? And to be fair, I would have had a fucking heart attack if I woke up and saw a pale face in my bed too. So I don't blame him for freaking out about that. So he collects himself, gets up, stops crying, stops hyperventilating. He goes into the water to try to find the bag. And while he's trying to find the bag, we have a little cut back and forth between him looking for the bag in the water and this dark brick hallway. And at the end of the hallway, a single spider leg starts coming around the corner. And then we cut back to him looking in the water. And then we cut back to the hallway. And now more legs are coming around the corner, right? And then we cut back to Philip again. And he's walking across the bridge. And we can see the spider in the mud. We can't really tell what it looks like yet because it's covered in mud. But the spider's laying in the foreground and Philip's in the background. Philip's walking towards it. And the face of the puppet is staring directly at you. Like, the face of the puppet is a head. Okay? So it's like a full, pale white human head with, like, human eyes. And it's looking directly at you as it's laying there. And it's fucking creepy. They do... This puppet... I struggle to call it a puppet because I don't see how the fuck this thing could be a puppet. This puppet is fucking creepy. It really is super, super creepy. Now we're back in the room, and the puppet is hanging on the wall, and we get more of the poem. Okay, so let me describe the puppet for a second. So the puppet looks like a pale white head. So just take a head of a person, pale white, no hair, dead-looking eyes, right? And then it's what looks like the top of a torso. So if you took right underneath the rib cage up to the shoulders and remove the arms, like that part of the torso, and then instead of arms, 8 spider legs, okay? And the spider legs and the torso, those are all brown. The only thing that's pale white is the head. And the poem continues, "Wait a while, my little children, for what is playing dead? Possum, with his black balloons, will eat you up in bed." And we see one singular black balloon rise up to the sky. And Philip is now face to face with this puppet. Yeah, the head of the puppet looks so lifelike. It's almost like a death mask, if you know what those are. Like when some people die, they'll make a cask of their face, and they call those death masks. It's almost like a death mask of a person. Like it's really, really creepy. So Philip's running through the woods, running over the bridge, and we see a bundle of black balloons. Philip's looking at him, and he looks like he's been crying. His eyes are red, they're all puffy. And the balloons float away. And behind the balloons is a window, and in the window, Possum, which is the name of the puppet, Possum is staring at him through the window, right? And now he wakes up to laying in bed, and him and Possum are face to face. And he pushes it off the bed again. So clearly he didn't put it there, right? So he gets freaked out, he pushes it off again. Philip runs downstairs where Morris is waiting for him in the kitchen. Morris tells him it wants to get out. And he waves him into the kitchen using the puppet he showed him earlier. Once again, Philip looks horrified about seeing this puppet. Morris asks him if he wants something from the jar. Philip says, "What's in them?" And Morris says again, same as always. And Philip says, well, then no. And they don't ever tell you what the fuck these are. And I wish I knew. Because they just look like little lime green balls. They almost look like gumballs. Just little lime green gumballs. Then Maurice asks Philip to tell him the story about the fox again. And Philip says no. And Maurice is like, tell me. I don't even know what fucking accent that was supposed to be. Maurice is like, tell me the story, right? And so Philip starts to tell this story about when he was a kid. Him and a couple other boys were playing down at the marshes and they found a fox. And the fox looked like it was dying. He said it was breathing really heavy. It looked like it ate something bad. It looked like it was dying. So the other boys kicked the fox to death. And after the fox had died, they made Philip pick it up. Philip says when he picked it up, he started to cry, and the other boys just left him there. A bit after that, the fox stood up, looked at him in the eyes, and walked off. Morris starts to laugh at this. And he calls the fox a sly. He calls him a sly bugger, just like a sly guy, like a sly little fucker, right? He then hands Philip this old, beat up red tin, right? Just like a little. What would you even keep in that? Like what? Just like a little tin, right? Just like a little tin. He says, "I believe this is yours," and then tells Philip that they're tearing down the old army barracks. And he says it's about time. And he says the place was, and I quote, black as sin. As Philip's leaving again, he looks at the first door number 1 again, and it looks like he's gonna go open it. And Morris asks him again, going in, and Phil just leaves. Now Philip's at the old army barracks. It has a building which at first I thought was just a school, and then these things that look kind of like, if you've ever been to an apartment complex that has garages, and they have them all in a row right next to each other, like all connected in one row next to each other, they look like that. And I guess the building was just supposed to be an office building. I thought it looks kind of like schoolish, but inside you can tell it's not a school. He goes into the building, and immediately he's in the brick hallway that we saw a minute ago. The brick hallway that had the spider coming over the end when he was having the little. I don't know if he's having the visions or if they're just flashes of something, but like the little flashes from when he was in the water. He's in the same hallway, right? He's walking down the hallway, and he walks into another hallway, and in this hallway, there's a bunch of doors, bunch of rooms jutting off from the hallway, and he stops in one which doors open, and when he looks inside, there's a chair, a mattress on the floor, and a youth cadet hat. And the youth cadets are pretty much just like the, what do you call them, like the Boy Scouts. So instantly, this doesn't look good, right? Like this doesn't look good at all. Now we're back outside the building, and he's walking through all this debris until he comes across this big square of concrete. Whatever was there was gone, and now it's just empty, and now it's just this square slab of concrete. So Philip opens the bag, and he takes Possum out of the bag. He lifts Possum up into the sky, almost like Rafiki does to Simba. Not Simba. Yes. Like what Rafiki does to Simba in The Lion King. Except instead of showing him to Pride Rock, he's got him turned to him, and he's looking at him face to face. And he's holding him in the air, right? And he's slowly bringing him to himself until they're almost nose to nose. And then Philip just fucking throws him. And then he walks over to it, and then he just starts fucking wailing on it. Like he just starts punching it and stomping it into the ground, right? And then he puts it back into the bag. But he puts it back in the bag with some bricks. He sees this little pool of water, and he tosses it into the pool of water, uses a stick to push it down into the water, and then he waits for the bubbles to stop. He goes back home to find the newspaper that Morris was reading on the table, and on the front page it says, "Schoolboy missing," with a picture of a kid. It's the kid from the train that Philip tried to talk to. Cut to evening, and Philip is getting ready for bed when he hears Morris reading the beginning of the poem that we've been hearing. The poem is called How He Came Into the World, and it starts like this. After the fire, Possum. Was it he who blacked the very sun above our town? Possum. Does his stare not seem like the face of walking death? Behold how he came into the world. Then it continues with the mother, father, what's afoot, as we heard before. So Philip is following Morris's voice, and he follows it down the hallway to door number 3. And he opens the door, and it's a small room with a chair in the center, and like tons of papers and files and boxes everywhere. Kind of like, how can I describe it? Just like shit stacked on top of each other, right? Like papers and folders and shit stacked on top of each other everywhere. Anyway, so when Philip comes in, Morris closes the book and Philip snatches it from him, right? And Morris comments that he didn't know that Philip could draw, and then he asks if Possum is dead yet, and he's told to mind his own business. And then Morris tells him perhaps he's still playing, talking about the puppet again, right? Philip pulls out a lighter and he lights it, and he just keeps on like lighting it, letting it go. And he asks Maurice, he says, "Why didn't you burn? Why are you still alive? Why didn't you burn?" And Maurice just laughs at him. I did it again, and Morris just laughs at him. Jesus Christ. We're back upstairs now. Philip's flipping through the book with the poem in it. And all the pictures he's drawn are places we've seen. Like the school, the woods is drawn in there, the marsh, which is the sandy thing I was looking for earlier. The fuck I was trying to tell you, the sandy shit, it was a marsh. That's the word I was trying to think of. Anyway, the marsh, and then now there's a picture of his room, and each of these pictures has Possum in it. So he turns on the light and goes to bed. Now it's the next day. Philip's sitting underneath the bridge. He opens up the tin that Morris gave him, and it's like 5 joints and an old picture of his parents. While looking at the picture, we get a flash of door 1, and it zooms in, but then it cuts away before anything happens. And now Philip is in the marshes. He's walking, and he sees a dead fox, right? He walks past it. When he gets past it, he turns around to look back, and the fox is standing up again looking at him. Just like in a story he told. This is one of those things that I know is supposed to mean something, but I can't, for the life of me, figure out what the fuck it's supposed to mean. It's so clearly symbolism of something, but I just can't figure it out. I think I kind of have an idea, but I feel like the idea is so far-fetched it doesn't even like register. Like I think I'm just grasping at straws for it. But that's not important. Anyway, we're back home again. Philip's looking for Morris, and he goes into the room with all the papers, and he sees Possum hanging on a wall. Now we get more of the poem over the shot of the marsh. And the poem goes, "Happy Valley, painted black, all the children in a sack. Wave goodbye to sun and moon. Say hello to black balloon." Back in his room, where he's watching Possum through a mirror, and a bug crawls out of Possum's mouth. I think it's a spider. It's kind of hard to tell, but something crawls out of Possum's mouth. And he gets up and examines the puppet really, really closely. Really, really, really close into its face. Like he's almost waiting for it to speak or to move or something. All of a sudden he hears the sound of a shovel in the backyard. So he takes Possum in the backyard where Morris is, and Morris is burning papers in the barrel we were talking about. Morris has got the newspaper that he was reading earlier, and he points to the missing kid on the front. And he says, "Happened before, I recall. Your time." Like when you were in school, when you were a school kid, right? Your time. After the fire. Your school, wasn't it? And then Maurice says, "I taught there." So now we learn that Maurice was a school teacher of some kind at that school where supposedly a kid went missing or something like that way back in the day. Morris continues, "Stuffed him inside a bag, didn't he? Wore a mask so they couldn't see him." At hearing this, Philip starts to cry, right? Morris comforts him, saying he had no idea. Gives him one of those little green things from a jar. I guess it is candy because he eats it, but as soon as he eats it, he starts to gag. Like he almost throws up, right? Philip's asleep, and we see some of those familiar scenes again. We see the balloons and the smoke. We see Possum hanging on the wall. We see Possum in the mud at the marsh. But this is the first time we see Possum move. It's the legs. The legs move when it's in the marsh. And when it's hanging on the wall, you can see its eyes move. We zoom into door one again, and we snap back to Philip on a bed in a room. It's not the bed that he's been sleeping on, and it's not the same room either. He's sitting at the head of the bed, if that makes sense, and at the foot of the bed is a jar with the green balls in it. He's holding a green ball in his hand, and he just pops it in his mouth and eats it. And then there's a quick shot of him standing in a field, like in the very beginning of the movie, and then back to bed. This time at the foot of the bed, instead of the candy, is a brown bag. And then it cuts back to Philip. And then it cuts back to the bag. And the bag's open now, and Possum's spider legs are coming out, but his head is still in the bag. And then it cuts back to Philip, and he's looking really scared. And then it cuts back to Possum. And Possum's head is now out of the bag, and it's looking directly at us, right? And then it cuts back to Philip. And then it cuts back to Possum, and this time Possum runs at Philip. So now we've seen Possum fully move. And it moves just like a spider, and it's horrifying. He wakes up from this nightmare in his bed, and he hears knocking at the front door. So he gets up, and he quietly goes down the stairs to see who it is. These are the quietest fucking stairs I've ever heard. They don't make a single noise. I don't know when this house was built, but those stairs sound brand new. My stairs in my apartment make so much noise. If I tried to walk down them, I would alert the neighbors. But somehow, this old house has the stairs make no creaks whatsoever. So he goes down to see who it is, and it's the police. And they're like shining lights into the window, trying to see if anyone's home. And they end up leaving, because Philip just kind of hides from them, because they're shining in the window, and he hides against the wall, right, so they can't see him. And so the police end up leaving, and Philip's just sitting at the bottom of the stairs, and he is sweating. He is breaking out in a sweat. And he looks up, and he sees door one. And then he goes back upstairs. Cut to morning again. On the TV in Philip's room, we hear that the police are looking for a suspect in the case of the missing kid. They describe the man, and the guy that they're describing looks just like Philip, wearing the same clothes, been in the same areas. They say that the boy was seen in several places with the man, including the army barracks and the marsh. Philip goes back to the marsh and to the barracks, and at the barracks the police are there, and so he's hiding in one of those garages, the garage-esque things that I talked about earlier. Cut back to the house, and Philip is like taking everything out of the burn barrel, right? Like he's looking through it. He's clearly looking for Possum. Morris says, I want to talk to you or whatever. So they go inside, and Morris is like, the police came looking for you today. And Philip's like, well, what did they want? And he's like, well, it's none of my business, right? And then Morris is like, did you find him? And Philip's like, who? And he goes, whoever you were looking for. And Philip says, we burned him. We burned him together. And Morris says, you must be confused. You look really sick. You should go lay down. Lay low for a while, right? And then Morris says he's going to go away for a while and not to bring trouble to the house. So Philip runs back to the school where he was weirdly looking earlier. He goes inside, and I guess the schools have like secretaries, I guess they would call whoever's in the front office. He's asking to speak with a teacher. Turns out it's one of his old teachers. He says something, the lady's like, what do you want to talk to him about? And he says something about the teacher knowing everything and promising to go to the police station with him. Stuff like that. So the secretary tells him to wait for a second, and she goes into the office with the teacher. You can't really make out what they're saying, but you can make out the teacher saying, like, you call the police, and I'll make sure he stays here, right? So Philip immediately runs. And now we're back at the barracks, and Philip's sitting down. He's looking at the picture of his parents when it starts to rain like black. Like it looks like black paint is raining on him, right? And Philip looks up into the sky, his face is getting covered with black. And then we cut to the scene from the beginning with the bag in the center of the trees. This time, when he unzips it, Possum crawls out. And when Possum crawls out, he runs away, and he hides behind a tree. This is where I have to go to part 2 of my notes because this was so long. So he runs away, and he goes and hides behind the tree, and Possum's already at the tree he was hiding behind. So now he wakes up in the garage that he's in. He hears a little tapping on the roof. It's like a tin roof. You know, you can hear when things hit the roof. And he hears tapping on the roof, and you can see dangling from the top of the roof little spider legs. So Philip runs. And he runs into this hall, which is the same hall we saw in the beginning with the brick, I'm sorry. And he's running down the hall, and at the end of this hall is a room with no door, and so the room is black because there's no door, and inside the doorway you can just see Possum's white head just staring back at him. He runs further down another hall, and again he turns into this hall, and Possum is peeking at him from around a doorway. He makes his way out of this building, right? He runs all the way through it, makes his way out to the square concrete slab from earlier, and in the center of the slab is Possum. And Possum is standing like a real spider, like up, not like a, not like a dead puppet, like a real alive thing. Philip slowly walks over to Possum. He falls to his knees, right? And then we see Possum's little feet, little legs on Philip's shoulders. Philip looks up at him, and he's looking right in Possum's face. But because it's an evening sky, Possum is just a black silhouette. So there's just a black silhouette of this spider over his head. Philip wakes up on the ground, and he spits out that green thing. And now we're back to the bed with the jar of the green things. And we hear the poem again, but this time the voice is Morris who's reading it. This whole time the voice that's been telling us the poem has been Philip, or the voiceover of the poem has been Philip. This time the voiceover is Morris. And it continues, the parcel opened, out it sprang, the black, long-legged possum man. Children ran, he'll eat and smother any child without a mother. Philip's in his room crying. He looks really bad. Like very pale, very sweaty. His eyes are puffy and red. He looks like he's sick, like he's got a fever. He looks into the mirror, and instead of seeing his own reflection, he sees Possum. He's clearly losing his mind. Now he's standing in front of door 1. He reaches for the knob and he opens it. And it's the room from his dreams. The dream where he's at the head of the bed and Possum's at the foot of the bed. It's that room. But everything is heavily, heavily burned. Like everything's black with soot, and you can see the fire burned away the wallpaper, and on the floor is a blanket. And on the blanket are 2 jars, each with teeth inside. Philip is examining the jars when a masked man runs from the shadow and throws a bag over Philip's head. The man then throws him to the ground and pins him by sitting on him, only for him to take off his mask and reveal that it's Morris. This part gets a little intense. Stay with me. Morris then asks if Philip came to see Mommy and Daddy, and Philip is crying and he's hyperventilating, and Morris calls him a dirty boy, and he starts slapping him, right? He calls him a dirty orphan boy, and he starts slapping him. He says, Mommy and Daddy burned away, and he says, Uncle's here. And then he takes off his gloves, and he says, Uncle Morris with his fingers. Do you like my fingers, boy? Have you missed them? And this whole time, he's just been repeating no. He's just like, no, 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 no. And he's like, you want my fingers, don't you, you dirty, filthy boy? Then open up. And he tells him to open up, and he's slapping him in the face because Philip won't open his mouth. Philip opens his mouth, and Maurice sticks his fingers down Philip's throat. He calls him a naughty boy. He says, you're a naughty boy leaving your uncle home alone. Maurice gets off of him and starts taking Philip's pants off, and he tells him to turn around. And he grabs his face, and he says, you knew it was me, didn't you? Out by the barracks. You knew it was me, didn't you? And Philip cries out, yes. And he says, that's where I worked. I worked everywhere. But you didn't tell anyone. Now they're coming for you. Then he gets off of him. And, okay. And see, I thought we were right here. We were about to watch Philip get raped by his uncle. There's only 3 minutes left of this movie. And I did not want a movie to end on an incest rape scene. That would be way too much. That'd be way too much for me. Luckily, that's not what happened. uh, Morris just beats him with a belt. So I guess that, I mean, getting beaten with a belt is better than incest rape, I suppose. While he's getting beat, there's a trunk in the room that starts to rattle a little bit. Philip turns around and wrestles his uncle to the ground and gets on top of him. And Maurice is still talking shit to Philip. And Philip gets he's like choking out Morris, and Morris is like, "You can't do it. You're still not strong enough. What are you, a big man? You all grown up now?" Type shit. And Philip just pushes on his head and just breaks his fucking neck. So Morris is dead now. I mean, good. Philip gets up, opens the trunk, and the missing boy rolls out and runs off. The movie ends with Philip sitting in the backyard, and in the foreground, we see Possum laying in the grass. The end. Okay, so that's the end of the movie. All right. So let me tell you now things that weren't explicitly said, right? So Morris was a child molester, murderer. I think he was a molester. Well, I mean, I think he murdered the kid, but I think he also molested him. Just the way he was treating Philip at the end. Anyway, he killed at least one of the kids that Philip was in school with, the ones that bullied him with the fox. So Philip knew that, and he didn't tell anyone. And then after his parents died, Philip had to live with Morris, where I'm assuming he was abused. Because it seems like, again, by the way Morris was treating him at the end, it seems like that was not a new thing. Possum was a character that Philip created after the fire that killed his parents. In the poem, Possum is said to eat children and maybe even start the fire. So Philip knows his uncle is responsible for the murder of the boys and thinks he might also be responsible for the fire that killed his parents. My theory for the whole movie, is that no one was in the house. No one was in there at all. Morris wasn't there, no one was there. And Possum is a manifestation of the crimes his uncle did. And they're like, how do I put this? They're like possessing him almost. Like, he says early on, once he gets rid of the puppet, then his job will take him back. So I think he tried to kidnap a kid, and it didn't work, so he got fired. And he's saying when he gets rid of the puppet, when he gets rid of the urges to kidnap children or murder children, whatever it is he tried to do, he can get his job back. I think that's what it is. Then he came back to his childhood home to try and work through some of the issues. Morris tells him doing puppets is passed down from father to son, which is where Philip says Morris isn't his father. Basically, I see it as Morris saying, if your father's a bad man, you'll be a bad man. Basically saying, I'm a bad man, you're going to be a bad man. And that's when he's like, well, I'm not, you're not my dad, so, I don't have to be. So I think Philip did kidnap the boy and lock the boy in the trunk. And I think the final fight with Morris was him fighting with himself over becoming like Morris. And when he kills Morris, he's killing that part of him that wants to follow in Morris's footsteps, if that makes sense. And I'm going to stop explaining that, because I'm going to get into a point where I just start rambling, because I'm losing myself in my thought a little bit. Another thing I want to say before I end this, the way he was walking and his face, as I was writing the script, I think he's supposed to look like a puppet, because puppets have unchanging faces, right? So he's always in a frown. And if you ever see, especially one of the very old puppets, like a very classic puppet, only the bottom lip moves, or like the bottom lip to the chin moves. So it almost looks like they're in a frown, because they've got the two lines that go all the way to the bottom of the chin. So it looks almost like a frown. So Philip always frowning looks like the face of a puppet. And him keeping his arms in front of him and very, very stiff is also very puppet-like, because puppets are controlled by someone, as you know. So when they're moving, they're not fluid, because they can't move freely. And so I think, in my headcanon, he's being puppeted through the movie, and that's why he moves like a puppet. This one's a long one, alright? And I'm sorry. It took me 3 hours to write this script because there was so much going in the movie, and I had to rework some of my thoughts over and over again and reword it, think of the best way to put it. And I probably still fucked up a lot of it in there because trying to explain what I thought as I was watching this movie that is very thought provoking is hard because my thoughts don't make sense anyway. So trying to make them make sense to other people is just not it's not easy. And at the risk of making this any longer, I'm going to just end it here. Once again, I do appreciate everyone that listens. It makes me feel really, really good when I get told that the episode was good and they can't wait for the next one. Even if it's only 4 people that say it does make me feel really good. So I do appreciate everyone that actually sits and listens to an hour of me talking about a movie that you're probably never going to watch. But until I decide to talk about another movie you've never seen, I'll see y'all next time. I got to think of a really cool outro, but I'm not going to think of it right now. So I'll see you next time.